Hi, this is Jeff Blauette, Technical Agronomist with Cooperative Farmers Elevator. And in this week's Field Friday segment, kind of wanted to talk about another management step that we can make here. The time is now when we come to management of these high-end soybeans. Fields that are looking good, fields that are really taking off like a lot of these now that we've had some rain. But white mold is a disease that now is the time for management if we're going to try and attack that. Some areas have it worse than others. Some fields have a history. Those are the ones that obviously we're going to want to target. We kind of know if white mold gets going how much yield it can take away, and it might only be in part of the field, it usually is, but if we can make some management attempts at those areas of fields at least, even with the commodity price the way it is today with soybeans, it's still worth taking a swing at it if we know we've got a history of a problem. These beans are really taking off like a lot of them. These were planted sometime in that first week of May. They're flowering really good now. We've got flowers kind of almost working their way up towards the tops of the plant. Basically, white mold management time frame is from R1, which is finding a single flower on the plant, to R2, which is flowers up and down the plant. That's kind of the management time we usually try and attack white mold with some fungicides or some other, maybe some biologicals or some other things that are preventatives. But white mold, we all know that have had it before. We've got the black rat turd sclerotia that end up laying on the ground. They lay here for a long time, so even though it was corn last year, we've probably got fields with a lot of pressure, have that pressure that's coming. We've had some rains. If we have moisture, we have a canopy that's getting closer to closing, beans that are rapidly flowering. Those black sclerotia will emit spores up into the air for quite a while. If they're in that canopy, those spores, if they'll land where they like to attack, is a kind of a pollinated or drying flower on that plant. It's kind of like a wound on that plant for a short time, and that's an entry point. If you look at later on where that white mold kills that plant, if you have it, you'll see it's always at a node, and that node is the flower that actually got infected at that time. Applying a fungicide or some type of a preventative, the time is now because those flowers are out there getting pollinated as we speak. So getting a treatment on to try and attack that ahead of the infection is the goal. Fungicide-wise, if you look at the data, Wisconsin has a lot more data than probably most universities because Wisconsin has a lot of white mold typically. Endura tends to almost always show up at the top of the charts as fungicide goes. And then, there's some other things that have showed up well as well, and there's some biologicals we're playing with that are maybe not quite as costly. We're testing, but they may need to be evaluated too. But timing-wise, it's probably getting about now. With this weather pattern we're in, it kind of seems like now there's more and more chances of rain off and on, keeping that soil and keeping that canopy moist. That's going to be a disease environment for these soybeans. So just something to touch on. Timing-wise, it fits. We're there now. So if we've got a nice looking field of beans and we have a history, we may want to approach that. So with that, that's this week's Field Friday segment, and we'll see you next week.